So when it comes to Thor Ragnarok, there's obviously a lot of eyes onto this movie, and rightfully so. It looks different. It definitely screams a total different version of Thor that we've never seen in the MCU before, and a completely different version of Hulk. Now, of course, we know that this movie, out of every movie in the MCU, is most inspired by Jack Kirby. And recently, there's been a lot of talk regarding how this movie is going to be, how does it compare to the Guardians of the Galaxy, and things like that. Well, here's what they actually have to say when asked about it and how much they would go into the Guardians of the Galaxy realm. They said, and I quote, "We're definitely leaning into Jack Kirby more heavily than Guardians. There are elements of Guardians that will work their way into our film, both stylistically and narratively, in the sense that, like all the Earthbound heroes, we feel they're living and breathing in the same air. Certainly now that we're in space, it feels in a very MCU way that we're living and breathing the same air." So there's all that. Now, obviously, we know that every movie has to stand on its own, but they have to make sure certain elements of the universe connect stylistically, and you definitely see that in this and throughout the entire MCU. You know, more specifically how all their suits are built and kind of reflect on each other. Now, clearly that's something that Marvel is going to stick with, and they don't really need to go too much into the Guardians aesthetic and everything. But I find it very interesting that they mention, certain connections, even stylistically and narratively. Now, narratively, what does that mean? And are we probably going to see the Collector like was anticipated? Because people said, hey, is he going to appear in this, since we see his tower in the back on the planet, which would be, I think, a great element of something great they could include, which would honestly be, a little bit more world building, which I think they need to do in these movies, because at this point, it's kind of become necessary to do these things. You can't just ignore everything. And I know they said, oh, it's a standalone movie. Yes, you approach it as a standalone movie, but you also approach it as a shared universe movie. And narratively, if they're connecting the Guardians, could this actually mean that those rumors we heard that Thor Ragnarok ends with the Guardians picking him up, leading into Infinity War, could that actually be true? I guess we'll find out sooner rather than later.